All right, hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Warehouse. My name is Brogan, and today we are back for another trading stream. Obviously, you can see on the screen, we do not see Bitcoin and Ethereum on the high liquidation heat map. 24 hours, total long liquidations, 105 million. The world is healing. We are obviously, haven't dumped again. We are not at 90k yet for Bitcoin. Obviously, we've calmed down a bit, which is obviously nice to see. Let me start timer before anything goes wrong. And I spend 2 hours talking. Hopefully you've all done well. Obviously the stream started like 3 minutes ago or whatever it was, 5 minutes ago, and it hasn't been that much time to let people join. But regardless, to the people who are actually here on Square and YouTube, hopefully you've had a good day so far. Hopefully you've had a good evening. Whatever time zone you're in. Obviously it could be the morning, could be evening, whatever it's going to be. I'm pretty happy so far with the charts. I'm pretty happy. We can move from liquidations, go to CoinMarketCap. We can see, 24-hour 0.14% move down. Bitcoin, it's doing all right. I mean, it's not pumped all the way back up. It's still kind of hovering. We've had a little bit of a consolidation period, if you will, near the bottom like this. So, we've not exactly pumped back up to 114 or whatever. Obviously, we do need to talk about where we're going to come to next. If we are obviously slowing down, having a retracement and coming down again, obviously we need to talk about it. Ethereum's at $3,997, nearly $4,000, about 1% down 24 hour. Obviously, 7 days where the pain is right now. But obviously, again, across the board, we've had we've had worse 24 hours. Like the last stream and stream before, we've had worse. We've had a lot worse. So not a bad day. I mean, it's not a day where we've had It's not a scenario where we've come down to our positions after, liquidating every single long we've ever seen, coming all the way down and then coming all the way back up. We haven't seen that yet. Obviously, we're still in our process, but, on the 24 hour, we haven't really moved. So we're still in similar positions we were in last stream, obviously with a bit of TA at the bottom. Obviously, we'll mainly be talking about the price action since last stream, basically since, I believe I did stream Thursday. So, basically between Thursday and today, there's not really been a lot of different movements. It's literally just been like this. So, I will be talking about that TA, but in terms of what I said Thursday, on the whole, will probably be the same thing I'll be saying today. So even you can see on Solana, 24 hour, 0.04% change. So again, very similar to Bitcoin there, 201.61, not really much movement there. We've kind of come up a bit, we've kind of come down a bit, we've kind of in the middle. But it's like Solana's on the 24 hour, obviously give or take, Solana's moved just as much as USDC has moved. So, we're definitely in the middle ground here of, the last 24 hours. If we go to some other coins, we've got Sui at $3.17, 1.8. Okay, it's gone 1.3 now. It's weird. It's obviously, it jumps really quickly. Whatever, about 1%, let's say, for Sui, down 24 hour. Obviously, very sad about Sui, but, we'll be talking about it. Again, obviously, 13% down on the 7 day. So yeah, still sitting in these ranges as we talked about. Again, 1% isn't that much. We're still sitting in that bottom of the area we had on Thursday. Going on to Syrup now, we can see we're at 3755. About, where's the 1 hour? I don't know if it gives 1 hour percentage change on here. We're down. I can see the 7 day. I mean, we're down a bit. We're not that much comparative to. This is over 7 days. So we've got 27th, 26th, so 3 p.m. So basically, this is the candle-ish of the stream, this area, and we're right back where we are. So we've not really moved too much. We've kind of gone up a tiny bit, kind of come back down a tiny bit. So not really too much of a movement. Obviously, we'll get into it, but yeah, still sitting in these low areas for Syrup. And again, it's the same message across the board. CRO, 18.5 cent right now. In terms of the change from last stream, 26th was about here, which was this count. So we have actually come down even more over CRO. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll obviously see what's going on with CRO in a second. And other than that, what other coins do we have? XRP. Okay, always try to type USDT because I always do it on TradingView. So yeah, so obviously we came down. We're hitting some areas on the lower end. Obviously came up, and then obviously between 27th and or 26th, sorry, I should say, about here and here. Literally no movement in between these two candles. So again, pretty much across the board. Just to check, obviously on the latter end of the coins, XRP, CRO, Syrup, there's been no change on the 24 hour. Let alone has there been since last stream, really. So obviously, there's not been too much. There's not be too much to talk about across the stream. Anyway, I'm yapping on this end. Obviously, welcome to everybody. No one is in the YouTube chat today. No one is here. Okay, I've messaged it in Telegram. Just no one's here today, which is fine. But Tito is obviously here, so we will get onto Solana after Bitcoin and Ethereum and looking at the higher time frame, see how we can do on the way down. If this is the catalyst which starts on the way down, obviously in theory, not not financial advice, we'll obviously be talking about it, but we will be talking about the higher time frame for Solana. Which watching giving space to the market, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think in this time, especially when we're in a period where we've already had this massive correction, it's going to be a period where we're watching, lower time frames, watching where we've come to, and seeing, are we going to be finishing somewhere near now and then having another retracement, or are we going to be continuing lower and just letting it play out a bit? So obviously we can kind of gauge that based on certain lows or certain internal range targets which we can go for, but obviously, yeah, in these sorts of periods it's good to wait. Anyway, see, I'm trying to do more lines and less boxes because obviously it gets to the period where we're on the 15-minute and we're in the middle of this box and it's just an absolute mess. It's just this like really dirty looking chart with all these colors and lines, and I'm trying to label it and keep it a bit cleaner for the stream. So of the latest, where are we? Here we go. Of the latest anyway, we can see it's basically been since Thursday 10, which was here, we are in this area of not really too much movement. And you can see a lot of these lines are 30 minutes. So a lot of my TA today on Bitcoin, number one, I'll be very quick because there's not too much to say, and I will be looking at the 30 minutes. So again, to kind of conclude, or not conclude, but to kind of reiterate what we talked about last stream. So what we talked about last stream, we were kind of going over the previous move we've had in terms of this move downwards we had, coming from obviously this massive event on Monday, which had this massive dump. Obviously, we were going to want to retrace somewhere within this move on the way down, especially in this Monday candle from the 2 a.m., 6 a.m. when Tokyo or Asia, it says, I have an indicator which tells me different time frames, it just says Tokyo, but Asia, let's say Asia as a whole, Asia opens and then obviously has this movement. Again, this is probably one of the biggest movements we had in terms of volume and speed and everything in between. And it was definitely a very important movement to kind of try to get back up into. Obviously, as people were getting really excited in this phase, trying to go, okay, cool, the market is absolutely dumping, let me short here as well. These equal highs were going to be a very good target. Also having this this gap area here, which obviously we had on the daily, which we wanted to get into. So again, obviously midpoint of this is somewhere about here. Obviously we failed to get to the midpoint. Not really important. The important factor is at least getting above this high of the move, getting above this high, and finding somewhere within this move to target. So let's go back to the 4 hour here. So obviously drawing a equilibrium or a premium discount from the high to the low, just to kind of gauge where the market is, because again, obviously we do have the optimum area, but it's some area you don't always have to focus on. It's more, you're more really, like, I could draw this equally as well as this, and just have the high to low and the equilibrium, just to see where it is. And you can see really clearly, this equilibrium sat really nicely on this midpoint of this gap on the 4 hour. You can see we had these highs which already came a bit into this gap. So again, and this is the importance of the equilibrium here, and this is why I keep on drawing it. Sometimes people don't draw this, and that's fine. Obviously, if you're on lower time frames like the 15-minute, or whatever, you'd have to draw equilibrium. But I enjoy drawing equilibrium because it really emphasizes the fact that, okay, yeah, we had a really big low, and then we retraced and we came into this gap. So in theory, you think, oh well, we've already entered into this gap, surely we should target and immediately dump, and then obviously not only wick past it but dump. And that's why I'm saying on the lower time frames you might not always have to use this, because again, you could use this on the higher time frame of 4 hour gap, look at the 15-minute and watch us enter, and this movement here on the 15-minute is going to be a big move, but relative to the 4 hour, in terms of where we're printing and I was actually continuing a dump, you can see our next expansion, which obviously if you're trying to trade on the higher time frames, trade a massive swing, you want to trade these massive expansions. We only expanded massively downwards until we hit into that equilibrium and above it into this gap and then dump. So as soon as we hit above this equilibrium into this gap, it was really nice price action. We got up into here and then we have a massive dump. So again, obviously that is a good sign, and that's kind of why I try to focus on using equilibriums and obviously looking at what price action we have and aiming for equilibriums at least. Obviously it doesn't always hit, but it's pretty consistent. Anyway, so obviously looking at this, also we highlighted this on the daily as well. We had a big candle, and obviously we have a positive print here, and then a massive dump and a positive print. So the idea is we could probably want to go up a bit towards this area. And again, the main thing we have going on for Bitcoin, especially for Equilibrium, is going to be about 111,279. So I do think we can see Bitcoin have a good retracement. And again, the wider the move, the bigger the retracement you would expect, or I would expect. So again, obviously this was quite a wide move downwards, and this was a pretty healthy move upwards towards 2.65%. So again, having another move down of about 4.7, the expectancy is going to be the same thing. And again, it's not like we haven't had the capability of doing this sort of move. Again, if we draw this across, we can do the exact same thing over here. Difference between this is obviously this gap on the 4 hour anyway is going to be a bit lower, so we're not really going to fully target this. We can already see we have wicked into it and come down. So again, like I was saying, on the lower time frames, you can if you're going to be trading within the day, if we draw a gap here, for example, you can see we came into this midpoint pretty nicely in this candle and came down. So if you're on the 15-minute here, you can definitely see, okay, even though our trade on the 4 hour, we shouldn't really expect us to hit into 110, 200 and then dump past the lows. We shouldn't expect that. Obviously, because we want to come to that equilibrium point is the main focus. So we can still use these areas as a good area to recognize a sell area on lower time frames. So obviously in this case, you can see we had this move upwards towards this whole basically sell area, if you will, whatever you want to call it. And then obviously we came down from here through these candles here and then dumped. So again, really good usage there, even on the 15 minutes. So again, not saying these areas can't be used, but in the idea of what we have on the 4 hour, we've kind of technically already used this area, and it's not really going to be an area we want to target for a reversal or a continuation downwards or an expansion downwards, I should say. So if we delete this quickly and get it out of the way, the next kind of focus is going to be, what do we have above this line which can stop us? Obviously, we have some gaps up here at 112.8. If we go to the daily, we can see to fill the rest of this is going to be around 111, so we could maybe expect a print at 111 100, but what we actually have, we have this move, and this is what I'm interested in. We have a daily order block here, a daily negative resistance order block, whatever you want to say. The reason we have this is we had this move down, obviously, during the Monday Asia Open, everything dumping, everything being liquidated. So this is definitely, if anywhere was going to be a good area on the logical side of things to be a area, if we retraced into to be a sell area, it would be this gap. So obviously the idea of gaps and whatnot is obviously you have outstanding orders or whatever you want to say. You have something in these areas where you want to come back up into them to continue the trend downwards. So obviously this made sense because obviously within this candle was Monday, obviously Asia Open, and in the first initial dump we had from Asia, that entire Monday, London, America, every single market or session open, everything dumped. It was a continuously dumped through every single market, obviously Asia, America, and London. So this candle was going to be the biggest area to focus on if we were to retrace to find a lower high for sure. So obviously we occurred that, and obviously this additionally backs up this candle as being a potential area to focus on for a good sell. Obviously being the candle which we traced into this massive sell area on the daily, finding that resistance point obviously within premium discount, finding ourselves coming above the 0.5 mark, and then having a massive expansion downwards, even bigger than the Monday open, which was the initial cause of this liquidation, or this liquidation event. So obviously this is going to be a really good resistance area. So we have kind of two main areas to target on a rough kind of basis. We have the initial kind of wick of the low, and then we have the midpoint. So somewhere this is going to be a resistance area. And again, obviously the bigger it is, so if you're using a resistance area on the daily and then go to the 15 minute, it's going to be very hard to find the pinpoint resistance area. But it signifies to us that anywhere in between 111 and 50, and then the midpoint at 112.5 is going to be resistance. So either this low point or the midpoint. So going to the 4 hour, now we are aware of what that is and why we have this grey area. We can then go back to the 4 hour and look what we have. So going to the 1 hour, just to kind of see it in a bit more detail. We have some highs which are going to be pretty interesting to target for. And then obviously we have the blue area, or this kind of blue line as a focus, and then we have this gap. So this obviously sits within this resistance area. So I do think we are going to see resistance not only for the daily, probably aiming a bit more towards the 112.5k area instead of 111.50, obviously a bit deeper in, obviously 111.279 being the equilibrium of this range. Going back to the 4 hour. So again, we don't really have a gap here or anything. What we do have, we have a tiny little gap here, which gets inverted by this massive dump, which we haven't seen an entry back into. So in terms of the longer range we have going on with this move, we could maybe expect to come quite deep into this move. You know, because again, this was a very obvious move. Again, we did have a gap up here, but we had this major gap of the Monday Open being in this move at 6 a.m. So this was kind of a clear winner for being the target we want to focus on. Obviously, for it being, you know, just above the equilibrium, and then us trading back up into it to actually nearly fill it here. But in this case, the main kind of one of the biggest gaps we have is this 4 hour at 110.7. Now this isn't above equilibrium, this is completely below it, so I'm not expecting this to be the reversal point. So not a scenario where we don't see resistance, but a scenario where this is going to be our lower high before we continue the trend downwards. So we don't have that resistance there. We do have the daily order block, and then from there we only really have this 112.5k gap, and apart from that we don't have much. Now we are coming back to this this order block we have on the weekly. If we go to the weekly here, we can see this candle obviously gets printed through in this main one. This is the candle which comes down below this low and back into this gap here to find the lowest low of this uptrend we have on the weekly. Obviously I've talked about this quite often, you know, on the weekly anyway. So we have this move obviously pumping back upwards, the high being the topmost point of where you should expect support. So anywhere in this area you should expect. Obviously the midpoint's an interesting area, so that's why I marked at the midpoint of it as well. So going back to the daily here, we can see we entered into it in here. Obviously we hovered like for maybe a few days, so we barely even got past it, maybe, you know, a grand. You know, we went, bearing in mind this is a weekly support point, so on the idea that if you have a daily order block and goes to the 15 minutes, you're not going to have a pinpoint entry. You know, it's not going to be a sharp, you know, snipe entry when you're using a support or resistance point from the daily on the 15 minute, you know, so to bear that in mind. So this is obviously in a weekly support, but you can see we did respect this area, and from this area, you know, even if you're on the daily on the 4 hour, as soon as you come within this area, you're going to want to watch for a reversal. You're going to want to watch to see if you're going to reverse. Obviously in this case you can see we continued downwards, we failed to print past these lows, and then pumped and obviously formed an order block here, retraced back up into it, or back down into it, and obviously reversed. So obviously we can see we can use these areas in general and not have an exact, you know, it wasn't any order blocks or there wasn't anything back there or gaps or anything. It was literally just price action failing to print past here and then reversing, and that was it. So, you know, we can just go off of the fact that we have this order block here, entering back into it, you know, 111.5 somewhere in here, finding a reversal and coming back downwards. That is more than obviously more than valid. We do have so many kind of highs here, kind of relative equal highs here before this massive dump, so this is going to be a great area to target at about 111.8. So I do think we can maybe not get as high as I'm saying. In that case though, it's not like a pinpoint entry area, it's going to be a watching to see if we reverse more so, you know what I mean? So I definitely think this area here, if I just draw a line here, it's kind of rough, I just want to kind of arc across it. This area here, you know, 111.8 is going to be a great area to want to target for these areas. You know, we kind of had a massive dump, obviously we gapped here, massive dump, produced like 5 equal highs, and then had this absolutely meteoric move downwards in the Thursday move, and obviously have had this phase here. So I do think we can see that move. You know, we can see a stopping point in this area about 111.8. Obviously this being within this gap as well, so, or this order block anyway. So I definitely think we can, you know, want to aim for that. And also of importance, I should probably mention, is this we have here. We have these 2 downclass candles, obviously this wick coming past these lows, which then allows us to print past these areas here. So this was an order block, and this is also very important. So not only on the daily but on the 1 hour, we had this order block here. As you can see, if we have this line drawn, we can see we used it here and entered, and obviously we pumped back upwards, obviously found our gap here and then reversed. So we also have this 1 hour order block. Again, obviously we formed it with printing past it within this candle. We reversed, entered back into this gap, which also is an order block. A really good entry there as well. You see that quite commonly if you're someone who trades gaps and inefficiencies or whatever. An order block which overlaps onto a gap here is a very good entry point to want to target as well, by the way. So obviously we have this move, and then we have this high. We have this gap which overlaps this here. We enter back in to fill the gap, and then we absolutely rip upwards, which is obviously great. But also bearing in mind we have this support. We have it here again. We're not gonna. We did use it as support once. We did come back upwards towards 113, but we're not going to find this as a massive support area. We're on the 1 hour here, and we're using a 4 hour gap into an equilibrium. So we're not going to want to watch for this as a support. We're going to want to come to this low, which eventually we did in this move. But what we can do with this order block we have here is actually use it as a resistance point as well. So to kind of bring focus to this, we obviously did use it once, and then we reversed it, obviously in this move. And then once we printed past this low with this here, you can see we reverse back into it. So again, same thing with the order block. If we draw this across, you can see that is now a breaker block here. So we have this whole area as a breaker block, and we have this gap here, a great entry for this as well. So if you're just watching this move down, watching this breaker block, I think this is actually a strategy. I think it's called, I don't know what the strategy is called, but people, I know there's a lot of people who trade this, where you have a reversal point, and then you watch for the breaker block, and then the trade back into it with a gap. And then obviously you trade back into it and then continue. So again, you have that there as well. You have that gap. You have that that breaker block with that reversal, and then you continue downwards. So great there. But what we can do with this is also overlap the fact that not only are we going to be as soon as we come above 111.50, as soon as we come above this price point, this is now going to be an area where we see resistance in the daily anyway. And we also have this 1 hour order block here, which is now a breaker block, obviously, as we've reversed it here. Obviously, you can see all these highs are now using this breaker block here. You can see all these basically print right on the low of this resistance point. So this is, I think, going to be a good area to target for Bitcoin. So if we draw this across and then label this, because again, I want to be, you know, I want to label it. I want to know what we're looking at here. So you can see, obviously, this whole area. Not only do we have these highs I talked about, we also have this breaker block. So we're in this daily resistance. So on the daily, for the daily candle prints, we should expect retracement, filling this gap, finding resistance in this order block here. So we should expect that. And also we have breaker block here of this whole area here, midpoint about 112.1. So I could expect anywhere within this area to be a good area completely. As soon as we get above into 111.9, if we were to do that, getting past these highs, we could wick into there. This whole area here is optimum trade entry, if you obviously in theory, and obviously from there on the 4 hour, we don't really have a gap or anything until 112.6. So I don't know if we're going to get up to that price in particular, but we do definitely have this area to focus on here. What we also have here is we have this gap which we used, came upwards, and obviously we've printed through. So we could potentially focus on this being an inverted gap. So obviously we have the top end of this breaker block here, which overlaps this inverted gap. Obviously we used it, and then we've printed through it here. So we could potentially use this as resistance again, as a resistance area. That sits a bit higher at 112.5. So we do have reason to stop. So the first target is definitely going to be 111.750. That's going to be the first target for me. Let me mark this out as red areas, if you will. And then I'm going to do the second target being, let's say around about here on the blue line. Also, what I will do is draw the midpoint of this area here, just in case we want to have that there. So we have a general area, and I know this is very wide. Obviously, this is like a $600 area if you want to pinpoint entry. But this isn't that big of an area. It's maybe 0.6 of an area, and all these, the midpoint of the resistance, these highs here, which enter into resistance. Obviously, this whole area here is a daily resistance. We have the gap which fills here, the midpoint of this gap, breaker block, and we have the midpoint of the daily order block, 112.5. So this area here is definitely going to be a strong area. So I would expect Bitcoin to see resistance in these areas, obviously, as we go. So just sitting on the 1 hour, 4 hour here, expecting Bitcoin to retrace based on the fact that we have high to low, retracement for a lower high, coming past this low, printing a lower low here. We expect us to do a lower high now. And the fact that we've come into the weekly order block here, it could maybe be a sign that we're slowing down, because again, once you once you reverse, because again, we had this massive uptrend here. We came back to 118 nearly here, maybe $200 away from this order block we had on the daily. As soon as you reverse, you're using previous areas you produced on the left side of the curve, if you will, on the right side. So if we actually use that as an idea here, you can see if we had all these lows here, we came past it in here, retraced back upwards, obviously a very small retracement being. Obviously, again, this was the Monday liquidation event, so obviously bear that in mind. So what are we going to want to target? We had a gap over here. We had like 2 gaps actually. Obviously, maybe going on the 4-hour here would be a bit better. So we had gaps over here. We had this gap over here, for example. The low, actually an inverted gap here is probably more important. So you can see we come upwards. So we have this low here. Obviously on the 1 hour we reversed. The main area, we had this gap here. We came upwards, came down, came upwards. We reversed. We've now come back into this gap, produced our lower low here. So this is what you want to do as well. Like if you have previous price action on the uptrend, if you don't know where your lower low is going to be. So again, it's very easy for us to tell where the lower high is going to be. Again, we have a massive dump, we have a lower low, we then have this whole price action to kind of determine where our lower high is going to be. But as soon as we start to dump and continue this trend downwards and take this low and print past it, where's the low going to be? Where's our lower low? How do we determine where lower low is going to be? Well, what we can do is use previous price action. That's the most important thing. So what do we have here? We have lows, we have equal lows over here, obviously of importance. We go to the daily here. What do we have? Main low, we have some lows you can target. And I think one of the most important things and again, the art of trying to find a lower low, it's not perfect. But previous lows on the way upwards are definitely important areas to target, I think. So we had these equal lows here. We came past them and now we're hovering a bit. But I think the main one for me, just to get out of the way, is definitely going to be this order block on the weekly. Again, as soon as we come into 108,950, that is us trying to find that support. And you can see on the daily, we kind of just about got below it by a tiny bit. But you can see we printed really nicely just about on that fact. You can see within this Thursday candle, we were off by maybe $40 or whatever that's going to be, $49. So we printed really nicely here. Obviously this candle printed and we had that retracement, and now we're doing our thing, potentially retracing a bit deeper now to continue a bit higher and then come down again. So really nice support there. So based on that fact, okay, we found what could be our lower low. So we probably shouldn't expect to see us dump again. And obviously, I'm not denying we can see us come up towards 110.7. There has been times before. It's not every single time 100% that you come to 0.5. It's not guaranteed. But on the fact that we have the daily and the weekly all being consistent with this move. Obviously we had this reversal, we had this move obviously on the 4 hour. It's easier to see. As soon as you see this move here printing through this candle body here, that's changing state. With this here, you can see we did that here. We had that retracement and then the low. This is our lower high. We had this move here, for example. That is our low, and then you go from here to here, and this is the start of the downtrend. So you draw it from here to here, that's our retracement, and then it's the same thing over and over again. But again, my main point was you can have scenarios where if you were to go, okay, well, we have this here and this here, surely we should see above equilibrium here, and obviously we didn't in this case. Obviously, for this example, if we go to the 1 hour, we had order blocks here. So for example, we had gaps on the way down. We produced, obviously we had this area here, we had a little bit of a gap, we filled it here, and then a dump. So obviously this one was very important. So looking at this for this rectangle, as you can see here, you can see we came back upwards into this order block and then came down again. But obviously from here, this spans a numerous amount of things here. So for example, we had this candle, this dump, this candle is now a propulsion block, comes back up into this candle, this is now a propulsion block. You can see we come back upwards and come downwards again. This is now a propulsion block. We gap now and kind of have a breakaway and continue downwards. And obviously we come upwards and then come downwards. Order block here, propulsion block, and so on and so forth. So on the way down, we're producing all these resistance points which we use. So there are scenarios where you go on lower time frames and there's a lot of resistance where you don't actually come up above equilibrium. So you know what I mean. It's there is, just to point that out as a thing I'm aware of. So to apply it to this fact, we should expect it to come to 0.5 at least. But obviously there's well enough scenario. But I think in this case, again, this main gap area which we produced with this massive dump, we've already retraced into it with this and then had a move downwards, and we can see that a lot clearer on the 30 minute, 15 minute with obviously these two gaps being produced here. We had this little gap here, we came upwards and obviously came downwards. This was now an order block here, we are obviously on the weekly, we were at the weekly support point, so obviously we see our support here. But obviously we had this main gap on the 30-minute here, we came upwards and then we came downwards, producing this order block. So this is a very strong order block here as well, 109.8, because obviously we've not only have we come above all these highs here, which we produced all these equal highs here, we've also come into this main gap area. So, you know, combining this, we come upwards with this candle and then dump with in this period. So this is definitely going to be a really nice resistance area on Bitcoin for this move here. Obviously, we haven't come back to it yet. We have different areas. We had this inverted gap here, which we obviously came upwards, found our resistance point on the 30-minute, and then dumped past this gap here. You can see we have this area to focus on. We came back upwards to fill it within this move, and obviously came downwards. And now we're kind of in this period. Okay, I have finally gone over the higher time frame for Bitcoin. We are 30 minutes left. I will quickly go over the 30-minute just to have a quick glance, but obviously I've given my price areas for Bitcoin on the higher time frame. I'll quickly go over the 30-minute on Bitcoin just to see what's going on, and then we can move on to Ethereum and whatnot. What I do want to do is say hello to everyone in the chat, because obviously I haven't done that yet. There's some people entering on YouTube, so obviously Tito said hello. Kishan, hello. How are you doing? Hopefully you're doing well. Craves, always insightful on Binance too. Thank you for being here on YouTube. I appreciate the kind words. I try. Obviously, you know, I'm not a financial advisor, though. What I will also say time and time again, I'm not a financial advisor. Obviously, you know, I've not gone to some, you know, licensed company and worked for 8 years and worked on the trading floor and had a license. You know, I'm not licensed to say anything. Obviously, it's not financial advice or anything. But obviously, if you get anything out of it, obviously that is all I ask for. Anyway, Hidden Gems is here as well. Hopefully, you're doing well. And obviously, Mike said hello. So, hello to everybody. Also, people who may have also not said anything in the chat, hello to you. Hopefully you had a good day so far. Anyway, so I quickly highlighted this out just to show it. We had a very nice power free here. We had a low to the high. So we came into a support point, obviously this being the weekly support. We came down into it, came upwards, and then we had this. So this initialized this range we had. And then we stayed like this. And then we dumped past these lows, obviously just about wicked, and obviously have to zoom in to show you because it's very low. This is anchored to this low here, so you can see this is on the low here, and you can see this box is anchored to this low. We just about came past it, wicked past all these lows here, came down. So obviously you have this this period of consolidation, and then we dumped, and now we pumped up towards. So again, this distribution wasn't any higher. Obviously, again, you can see we started to distribute, came past the highs, came down, retraced, order block here, coming past these lows. This is now an order block here. You can see the midpoints here, retraced into it, pumped, found the 30-minute resistance point or the 4-hour order block or fair value gap, and then we dumped again. And obviously that kind of stopped us. So we had so this could have started if we didn't have this massive resistance here we formed on Thursday. If we didn't have that, this could have started us all the way up towards 112 easily. But obviously we had this massive sell area here, which obviously isn't quite above 0.5, so it isn't going to be a reversal point to find a lower high, but it's going to be an area we find sell completely. So obviously we did that, and obviously we dumped, so we didn't get any higher, and then we're back into this phase again. So you can see we kind of had a come up, come down. We had this gap, we had this inverted fair value gap here. You can see we filled. That's not really well drawn here. You can see we filled it quite nicely, came down, excuse me, and then we've kind of just been using gaps. So if we go to the 1 hour, we can see it a bit better. You can see we've kind of came upwards. We printed past these highs, good chance, you know, here we go, you know, it's time to go upwards. Gap, obviously, we're not going to be doing that. Inverted gaps here. We actually had an inverted 1 hour gap here, which is the same as what we looked at on the 30 minutes. We had a main gap, obviously, we filled, so this whole area is well, this being the bounce price range. Obviously, if you have a gap here and a gap here, this is obviously going to be the bounce price range. This is going to be the main area you want to focus on. So we came really deep into this gap. Obviously, this is us coming from the fair value gap. So this whole dump here is going to be high value area. So obviously, retracing high up into it, filling the entire area here, and obviously we start to come downwards. Importantly though, you know, we had the high, we had the low, but again we formed this resistance here. We stopped using, we stopped in our tracks again, finding this area. If we didn't have this area, I think this could have resulted in us coming up all the way up towards these areas, but obviously we haven't. And obviously we used this gap area, and then we had a higher low, and then failed to print past this area here, and then So you can see we kind of wicked past it, filled the gap, took this high, and then we start to dump, printing past this low. This not being a great thing. So in the idea of this on the 1 hour 30-minute area, us being back into this down move. And then as you can see, we're kind of chopping in this area. So we're clearly, in general, if we go to like the 4 hour, we clearly have hit off an area where we've stopped at. We've clearly hit like a brick wall. We've clearly hit an area where price wants to stop going down, and ripping downwards. So we can really see this awful price action. And importantly here as well, you can see we had this low being taken with this move, and then this candle prints through this singular candle. So this is now a order block. As you can see, order block 30-minute here. So you can see we've formed this, and then as you can see, we've as soon as we come back into it, this is now us focusing on finding a buy area. We also had a gap here, to be fair, as well. So again, same idea. We had actually had an inverted gap. So 30-minute order block. Even this, to be fair, actually, this is also still a 15-minute order block. This you can see we printed through this entire thing in these two candles. This is not only is this area an order block, so as soon as we come into it, we want to find support. We also had an inverted gap here. This whole area being a balanced price range. You can see we kind of came to that midpoint, finding a support. So we've continuously found support here, and you can see we've interestingly, on the 15-minute, we can see we're failing to print past these highs in this whole period, and then we failed to print past this low here. So you can see we've printed past this low here, and then we've kind of come up, failed to print past this area. You can see we're now coming upwards, and we're only just about starting to print past this high and start to come upwards. So on the 15-minute, we could potentially be starting to try and reverse it, especially us forming this big support area, failing to print past 109.7 and continue lower. We've hit this area. Obviously, we had a bit of resistance. Again, we did have this gap area. But if we are on the phase of starting to reverse, if we can start to get past some of these areas, again, we do have equal highs here. Could be a bit of difficulty. We have some equal highs here as well. Tiny little gap here. But other than that, if we start to try and get back upwards again, and we haven't printed past this low, we start to if we start to retrace upwards and start to come upwards, yes, there will be this resistance on the 30-minute we've talked about. Obviously, we've already used this. We don't have to look at this. And obviously, we've looked at this little mini area we filled. So we don't really have this anymore. We filled this. So we can get through this area at the top. So we probably will see a higher low. If we start to reverse anyway, see a higher low at 110.6 as we go upwards. We have this area. If we start to reverse and go upwards on the 15 minutes, we will end up taking this high. We have a gap area here. Horribly drawn, I do know. Let me try to do it a bit cleaner. So you can see here we have this move down, move upwards. So this is potentially a breaker block here. In this little move here. So what we have, actually, now I'm looking at it, it's more this one actually. So we have so with this move down, we have a gap here, we fill this gap, we come upwards and print this, and then reverse. Obviously, as we are reversing downwards, because we are in this old breaker block. We reverse downwards, so this is now a resistance area. So we do have this line here, obviously potentially this one as well. So we have this gap overlapping with resistance. So we have, let's just use the lowest one as an example, just to be, what's the word, lenient with it. So drawing that line, let's make it like green. No, let's make it blue. So we have this area. So this is a gap with a order block, or in this case could be a breaker block of resistance as well. So this will be a resistance area. However, let's go to the 1 hour quickly. Looking at this, we can see we have this area. We've not really printed past the major lows here. We're kind of chopping a bit. I think we could definitely have a period where we either retrace a bit harder into a support area in here, maybe even wick past some of these lows. But if we might have a little manipulation phase again, we might start to try and trek upwards, especially if the 15-minute continues to print. On the 1 hour, we start to go upwards. We could try and start to get up towards some of these areas, getting past this high here, printing upwards, obviously seeing resistance here, and then finally seeing a bit of a move upwards to try and get back upwards for Bitcoin, especially on the higher time frame. We need to recover some of this move downwards in this and then continue downwards. If we are obviously not financial advice continuing downwards, and this isn't a reversal area. But obviously, we'll see. But we obviously have seen on the daily anyway a massive move downwards, a lower high. We are going to be targeting. So I don't care how we move in this on the daily. If we are just seeing these slight retracements on the daily here, we are clearly targeting these lows. clear as day. So even though we have a weekly order block here, we're clearly targeting these lows here. So, because again, we had this massive reversal. We had this move upwards, higher low, filling this gap. We had this move upwards again, failing to print past this, reversing, printing past this low. This now being a area of resistance, this now being a breaker block here. These consecutive candles downwards with a print upwards, reversing it. Midpoint being here, seeing resistance here, coming downwards. This is us starting this down move, in theory, obviously not financial advice. So the idea is we want to be targeting these lows. If we are going to continue this move downwards, we're gonna want to see us print past these lows. So obviously we'll see how it goes, but we have these areas on the daily here. With this again, we had this order block here. You can see we hit this basically on that midpoint there. Weekly order block being this whole area here. So we have these areas at 103. So what I was saying last stream as well was, we could maybe see it come quite deep, come to 103 as a support area for that midpoint of this weekly order block, and then see a lower high, and then see us come down towards wicking past this 98k, coming upwards again, and eventually at some point we're going to see us come to this massive support area we have on the weekly. Because on the weekly, we've had this massive move upwards, massive move down, massive move upwards. We, in theory, might have a massive move downwards, and then a big old move upwards. So, this makes sense on every time frame, in my opinion, anyway. So we'll see how it goes. I'm potentially seeing some sort of retracement for Bitcoin. Obviously, yeah, we'll start, guys. I do need to move. I'm on 20. I always somehow spend so long on Bitcoin, so let me move on to Ethereum, and then we can have look at actually look at Solana and actually move on to other coins. So let me go to my Bybit, or not saying that's the chain the chain I use, but just the chart I look at. So what do we have here? So we had this gap on the daily here. You can see the low to the high. With this one, obviously, I do think we can come deeper into it. This not being a reversal area, but this being an area to look at. I mean, this was a perfect reversal on Ethereum. We had a move upwards, a higher low. We came up and we did actually print past this high. So yeah, fine. And then you can see we did a higher low again. Obviously, this being a order block, propulsion block area. We have this gap. We failed to print. As soon as you start filling that print and we come down and then we reverse this gap, importantly as well, you can see, probably a bit down the 4 hour actually, of the inverted gaps we actually use. So you can see, like, if we shimmy this across, having a nice print through this, coming back upwards and obviously coming downwards. So really bad reversal there. But anyway, regardless of how you look at it, we had a really nice reversal here. Printed past these lows, printed past these lows. So on the daily, as we're concerned, we have printed past lows on Ethereum. We have reversed this move upwards. Again, this move upwards starting all the way this move. Really lovely move upwards, a small retracement, massive move. And again, this is the same on the idea that if we go from this low to this high, the equilibrium's at 3,000. We got nowhere near it. But obviously, as you go lower time frames, we do have different reasons for different things. So we do have these individual, moves upwards, move down, move upwards, retrace. This one was quite a deep retracement. Move upwards, move downwards, failing to get past this. As soon as you have that move, you have this print past this low. That's us aiming for internal. Obviously, on this case, this being a daily retracement anyway. Where are we? So this being the daily retracement towards these areas back here, this small little gap we had to fill, and then we had this reversal, this nice reversal here, and then coming upwards. Anyway, that's all TA, no one cares. Let's go on to new stuff. So what we looked at was we had this weekly order block here. So if we look at this, we have massive expansion with gaps all the way here. One candle retracement below this low. So not only have we taken this low in theory from the weekly, so on the daily 4 hour, this is us reversing past the low and sweeping it, and then but obviously on the weekly, this being us just kind of retracing into this order block here, or this fair value gap here, and then we have this massive pump upwards. So this, having that retracement, this singular candle downwards, coming into a buy area, having a massive expansion upwards, not only coming towards 4,300, but this move starts us into a move which takes us all the way up to 4,960. So clearly this is a massive buy area. So the high, the low, the equilibrium, the midpoint, this is all just a big old support area. So starting this area at 3,941. So now we can go back to daily as we were looking at it. So you can see, similar to how Bitcoin has it, it's not a pinpoint access at this low here, but it's anywhere in between. This move is going to be a nice support point. Obviously, in this midpoint being 3,600, but as soon as you come into it, this is a support point. I'm not saying it's going to be an area where we stop at, but a support point nonetheless. We had a gap here. We already filled it. We already came to fill it. Came upwards. We've taken these lows. So again, I'm not expecting a bit of retracement as we've already touched into this weekly support. So yes, this is we have slowed down a bit. Obviously, a big old daily print, but it's nothing of importance. Again, this is the high, this is the low. We've had this retracement. I can't remember what we exactly talked about already. Obviously, we talked about us failing this move, and this is also a thing to bear in mind. Context as to how you're moving in the market helps to see if you're going to retrace to equilibrium or not. So in this case, obviously, this was the start of the Monday expansion downwards, and then this allowed us to reverse past this order block here, especially the midpoint. We reversed past this midpoint, but importantly as well, this was a daily propulsion block, which is still an order block. You can see as soon as we print past it in this move, the bottom of it, which is here, we start to use it as a breaker block now. So this whole area, not only this being, obviously I drew this here because again, we have printed past it here. So this whole area in between where is it again? 4355 and 4067. This is a big old breaker block here. So obviously this one formed a breaker block, reversed it. We see we use as resistance here, forming these highs, similar to how we have on Bitcoin, and then we dumped again on Thursday. And you can see here really nicely, we formed this, and this is actually quite interesting how accurate this was. So obviously we have, if we go to the 4 hour anyway, these areas being the high to the low. So what do we have in this area? Well, you might look back and see, oh, we have this gap, we could come into this area, we have certain areas. But what I see is in interest, I'm not saying we can't come higher, but I see of interest immediately is the fact that we have this daily order block here. Again, we filled this gap here, we pumped upwards and then printed through this area here. Or came past this high here with this move and then came down and came upwards again. This low is now the start of this breaker block. So as soon we can come to this low, we can come to midpoint, or this midpoint anyway. This is now a resistance area, a big one at that. So you can see, as soon as we kind of form that, we then actually start to use it. You can see, obviously, we had some highs. We did, we wicked past this high. Didn't print past it or anything. We didn't do anything of significance. But especially if we draw this, you can see we got a nice retracement up towards above midpoint. So we are now in an area to try and or an area which is valid to find a lower high if we are going to continue downwards and aim lower. We have lows here. These are going to be great targets anyway, but yeah, I think let me go to the 4 hour actually. I think let me find where I am. Okay, cool. So obviously we have also these down moves to up, so this is also a order block here on the 4 hour, I will say. You can see that obviously because we have these two down move candles before a big expansion upwards, which obviously comes towards these areas. We have obviously this moving past previous areas back here. We had this being an order block, so again this could also be a propulsion block, whatever. We have this move. So in the theory that, okay, as soon as you come to an order block again and then do another move like this where you move down and fill, is now a propulsion block. So it's like an order block from the order block. So you have this move downwards. Obviously, we've come into this area here. We have this move downwards and then this candle pumps upwards. This candle is now a support point. You can see we obviously come back into it quite nicely and then pump upwards in these two candles. So two candles downwards, and then we print past them in one move. So the top end of this is now going to be another propulsion block, which is still an order block. So just using that line, that's why I drew it, just to explain it to people. So what we also have, and this is again a good area to maybe again, I wouldn't long it because again we have had a massive downtrend. I wouldn't long this, but in the example of we have a 4 hour support point on top of this gap here, you can see we came into it really nicely and came upwards. So if I was to trade this, I would obviously, again, hindsight is beautiful, I would target highs. So for these are like, where's the obvious highs? I would say these are obvious highs. So these two equal highs, relative equal highs anyway. I mean, yeah, I could try target this high, I could try target this, but especially we're in a massive downtrend. I wouldn't long and try and target back up towards here. No way. That's just my safety. That I wouldn't feel confident in that if I was to trade this. It would just be to local highs, if anything, and a really tight stop loss at that, because we could just continue to dump on the higher time frame. But obviously, I just wanted to point out, there was this potential here as well. And not only that, we also kind of do have a bit of an area here. So you can see this was technically the down move. But obviously we have this as well. So again, this was the whole area. This was us coming into this weekly support point. We have this here as well. and then we pump upwards. We didn't print past, well, in this consecutive, we printed past this. So this whole area is support, midpoint about here. We come downwards and then come upwards in these sets of candles. So again, we have another one here. We come down, print upwards, this one here. So we also, if you were to look at it on the 1 hour, we also had, you know, an easy enough time finding this support point, which sits very similar to this line here. So obviously, even closer to this gap, we had this support area here. Obviously, this being the gap here as well. So anywhere in this area is probably a great target. Obviously, we wicked into it and then obviously pumped. I'm not coming anywhere near these. No chance I'm coming anywhere near this, because again, we have a massive dump, and now we're starting to come down a bit. So what I will say, I need to speed it. You know what? I just realized I need to speed it up. I'm taking my sweet time talking about this. Okay. Let me speed up. Let's go 4 hour. So, okay, we had the high to the low here. We've already come up above equilibrium here. We have had valid reason to stop. We have the bottom of this breaker block. We had a gap here. We filled it. So, again, same thing on the 1 hour to the 4 hour. We had this gap. We had this order block to this gap. So, this is obviously not sitting within here, so you can see we came past it. We still filled it, so that's of importance. We filled it, came to order block, we have this. Technically a rejection block. I don't really look at rejection blocks too much anymore, but we have this rejection block, so potential a bit of support, so we could come a tiny bit higher. We have this massive gap, so even if this isn't the stopping point, we have these relative highs here, with this high and then this breaker block high. Anywhere above this 4067 line, being the breaker block starting point, is going to be resistance, and then we have this massive gap here. So if we're not at 4067, it's going to be somewhere 4100. We're going to see resistance, and obviously in this case you can see, you know, we had this move down, move upwards, failed to print past this low, and then we've pumped upwards in this move, forming positive order blocks, and we've printed past this high, forming a shift, and then we can see we've used it as support. So, and we have a gap here, so we have order block and a gap, so we could potentially get up a bit higher. So instead of me saying we're going to dump right now, which again we could do, I could be wrong, not financial advice, my feeling is going to get involved here. I feel like we might have a bit more of a retracement upwards towards this gap before we dump, and come a bit deeper into this area. Again, optimum area for this move is this entire gap. And I think I talked about this entire gap being the area I wanted to focus on when I was talking about it last stream. What we also have here actually is we have this down move, and then we have this move upwards within this candle. So this is now a order block here in this move, and then you can see we kind of used it here, wick, print. But I'm not looking at this as a long-term support point. We are at the midpoint of our breaker block, or the bottom of this breaker block, I should say. No chances of support. We form it. We come up to breaker block resistance. We find a midpoint. Again, fail to print past this high. We lower high, dump. This is now a breaker block as well. So this, we have the bottom of this breaker block. Just to let me actually bring out the line here. So we now have, I should probably label this actually. I forgot to be labeling. I do not want to do. I want to do all caps. There we go. Perfect. So we have a breaker block here as well, and we have this gap here, which also sits at the optimum area of our premium discount. So this 4,200, we could maybe come to fill this area instead of the bottom, because we do have this resistance. But this gap is backed up by other resistance as well. So I definitely think we could be showing signs of continuing a bit of a trend upwards, especially as we've looked at on the 15-minute here and on the 4 hour as well, as we have formed a gap in this expansion and an order block, and you can see we've filled this gap and touched this order block in this support. We could potentially try and get upwards here as well. And obviously, this is a fail. We've swung down to try and get past this. In 3 minutes and 36, we're probably going to print above this low. As you can see, come upwards, came downwards, came upwards. We have equal highs here. We took some of these highs. Failing to print this low, we're probably going to continue to move upwards. So we'll see how it goes. I have 8 minutes. I need to speed up here. So I do think kind of a tiny bit more retracement for Ethereum. 4,120 maybe. Let's just say that as a rounded off number, and then aiming for lows continuously. I've already talked about the main area of filling this gap and the order block we have here. Again, down move into this candle. We had this inverted gap here. We printed through it with this candle. We came back down to fill it within this candle. So we have an order block which has point of interest, which is this inverted gap. And then we pumped in this area. So this is definitely going to be a support point here. And we have this massive gap we are continuously filling. So I think we could come to fill this and then maybe see a bit of a stronger support. So I do think we could continue to retrace regardless. But yeah, let's move on to Solana. So Solana, I want to look more so on the high time frames here because that is what I said I was going to do in Telegram. So I'll quickly go to the 15-minute here just to show what I looked at off stream. We had a previous gap here on the 15-minute. You can see we actually had an inverted gap. I should probably draw that instead. So we have this kind of balanced price range here. You can see we had a gap down, gapped up, gap down. Let's just draw this gap here as the latest one. Because obviously we came up, had equal highs here. We had a gap here, we filled it, came upwards, dumped. You can see we just about came up into this. This is not only is this a gap, but this is also a order block. So again, we have this order block taking this high and then dumping, and then this singular candle prints past both of these candles here. So really just aiming at this low here, and then we have this gap. So again, like I've been saying, we have a gap and an order block at the same time. So this is obviously a strong area. So what do we have? We filled the gap. Obviously, this whole area being resistance. So we came to roughly about the. Let me draw that properly. Actually, this is there it is. So this is basically this whole gap here, this move upwards and then down. Came to about the midpoint here, so filled the gap, midpoint, and then we reversed here, and then we've come down, and then you can see we had a gap here, whatever. We had the midpoint. We can see we've done a lower high. We have a 4-hour gap here, which is what I've drawn out here. I'm so glad I labeled now. So you can see we came down. It's actually an inverted gap. I should probably more so talk about. You can see we came upwards. We've expanded upwards, and then you can see this candle printed through this area here, and then we start to come back upwards, and then not only have we filled this gap is also an inverted gap. So the top end of this has filled this balanced price range here. We've come upwards, filled it pretty nicely, I would say, with these candle bodies, and then we've started to come downwards again. So it makes sense we have resistance here. We filled this on the 4-hour here, on the, if we look at the 1-hour or the 15-minute, let's say. So filled this quite nicely, and then we've started to dump really fast. Now we haven't come past this low, is what I will say, but we have continued to reverse. So you can see we kind of came down, and then we trended upwards, and then we had a low here, so in this move upwards, and then we came up one more time, and then obviously finalized the filling of the gap, and then we've dumped past this low. So even though we haven't printed past this main low in this move, I think we're continuing downwards, and this obviously is the shift to continue downwards. So you can see we print through this move down here as well, and what we have here actually of importance, we have a gap here. You can see we kind of fill the gap to nearly a T here, and then we pump upwards, printing through this candle in this candle here, and then obviously we kind of come and kind of come upwards one last time. So if we just draw, you can see we have this area here. It should be a support point. Obviously we dumped continuously. We have a 4-hour fair value gap here, so I wasn't really expecting anything to be holding a support, but importantly, let's just draw a range here. This candle, which came down into here, is going to be a resistance point. What I will say actually is these two candles got printed through in this move. This one obviously failed to print, you know, in this consecutive move downwards. So I will draw these two candles. Also drawing a range from the recent high to the low. You can see we're just about getting up above equilibrium here. So even though we came into this gap with this move, we didn't get to equilibrium, so we've come up one more time. We did, to be fair, did take the low, but again, not a major swing low, and we are continuously coming upwards. So it looks like we're trying to fill this gap. Again, the optimum being right on the T of this, and we have this resistance area here. So anywhere getting into here should be resistance. What we also have actually is a inverted gap. You can see we came upwards in this expansion. Actually, well, this whole area, pretty much this gap, and then we inverted it and we inverted it. So actually, obviously still focusing that this is going to be resistance area, but obviously anywhere in this range is going to be resistance. We actually have this balanced price range of coming up, and obviously the finalizing of this gap. So 202.7 could be a good area. I think we are going to see a lower high here and have this trend downwards, focusing for this low. So that's the 50-minute, just to quickly glance at it. I'm going to delete some of this just to clean up, and then we can go on to high time frames. So obviously, you know, 1 hour, you can see fill this area, came down. In theory, should be a swing here. Slight, and obviously we actually have a 1 hour gap here. So ignoring what I've just talked about in the 50-minute, we just have a 1 hour gap here, really. So looking like we're going to continue downwards a bit here, trying to get towards us, you know, continuing to lows here. So higher time frame, I want to quickly look at the high time frame. I have 3 minutes left on my stream, so I could probably have a quick glance at the rest of what I've got. But Solana, quickly, the topic of conversation on the Telegram was it 156? I think it was. Let me go check. It was 155 to historically before huge pump it needs to touch 155. So 155 is going to be around this area here. So we had a little gap here, but 15, let's just mark out 155 just to keep it a bit easier. So there, basically, let's make this like blue. So 155 is the topic of conversation. Now what I'm going to do is anchor this to the closest rational area, or the area of closest interest for me. So I'm going to anchor it to this low. So you can see this, obviously we have this massive down close. So what matters in an order block is going to be what candles down close, which candles come past the point of interest or come into a point of interest, and then which candles up close it. So you can see in this case we had this low here, we wicked past it, failed to print, pumped upwards. Now this is what is important. So this candle, even though this singular candle didn't print through it, this set moved upwards, but it didn't print through this one. This one was a gap. Obviously, we actually had an inverted gap here, but whatever, it's a gap nonetheless. So you see we filled it, but you can already see we use this one as support. You can see that's roughly where the midline is. You can see we came up, came down, came upwards. So the reason we have this is obviously this candle was the one which came past the low of importance. But the main thing for this as well is the fact that we had these two candles were the ones which printed through this one. So let me mark this out. You can see we had this order block here. If I just draw a quick rectangle to show where the midpoint is, you can see quite nicely. We just missed the midpoint, but you can see we came upwards and came downwards quite nicely back into this support point. So if I draw this, there we go. Okay, there we go. So 155 there. Here, so 165, this being support. So that's kind of the nearest anchor I will mention for 155, or near 155. Now, there probably is other support. I think I've looked at the weekly previously and shown the progression of Solana having its different support points. So again, same idea here of this move down, coming past this low, this candle coming past this low, coming upwards, and then we printed. Did we actually print through this here? Yeah, we did. So you can see. We had this area of support, and then we came down basically to that midpoint quite nicely here. So, you know, it came upwards. As soon as we come past this low, looking to find that support, obviously coming downwards. And obviously, remember what I said, as soon as we find that low, which prints through, that is going to be a propulsion block. So if we just draw lines instead, just to keep it cleaner, we have that order block there. Now we did have this order block. We failed to print through that high with this one. But you can see we come back down one more time in this one and then print through. So this, and obviously what I will say, why is this... Oh, I'm on the pen, I'm stupid. So drawing this across here, you can see these highs are very similar. So it's basically one in the same. So anyway, drawing that, we have this here, order block on the weekly, and then we come back down into it and then proceed to print upwards here. So in terms of 155, the closest I can really see with this is going to be maybe the midpoint of this propulsion block here with 153. So we do have validity in that 155 area. I'm going to keep this to this actually, no, that was just me marking it out, wasn't it? I'm just going to keep it to these lows, especially this 147 area. I believe we had some, if I go to the daily at 2... middle low at 2 something. Where was it? I can't remember where it was. I think it was this area here. We did have another order block here. Obviously this is being on a daily. I'm going to just zoom out quickly. So we do have different support points, but I think my main concern with Solana is the fact that on the weekly we are clearly like not in the greatest position, because we had this kind of move upwards. We had a move upwards, move down, move upwards, or move upwards, move down, move upwards, move down. I'm just going to highlight this, and then we failed to print past this. So you can see we wicked past this high, obviously wicked past all this. We had these two relative highs here, wicked past it in this move, failing to print, massive dump, printing past this major low, by the way, major low here, printing past it, slow retracement upwards towards an area of resistance. Potentially, obviously not currently yet, potentially forming a lower high in this move. So if I just hide everything quickly to make it easier, just showing it with the movement of my mouse just to make it, you know, a bit easier, I suppose. Okay, let me not draw. There we go. So again, move up, move down, move upwards, and then this, obviously this swing here, failing to print, coming past this high, and then this massive dump, printing past this low. So you can see we're coming upwards, obviously, filling areas, doing our thing. Obviously, this being quite a drastic move upwards, finding resistance on a lower time frame. If we're potentially seeing resistance here, potentially seeing a reversal, obviously in theory, not financial advice, we're going to want to see where we're going to find support on the way downwards, or find lower lows on the way downwards before we obviously continue upwards. So this will be obviously old order blocks. I talked about this on Bitcoin. It will be previous lows, previous order blocks, previous gaps. So obviously this low 155 is going to be important to want to target. This 193, and this is why I have it marked out. I think I have it marked out, I'm pretty sure. I don't have it marked out. Okay, I don't know why I've not got it marked out. I thought I did. Anyway. So obviously that's why I probably would have marked out that 195, because this is still, even though propulsion block, it's still an order block, and this will still matter on the way down. These will still be support points. We'll still see support here, come upwards, support midpoint, come upwards, wicking past the low, coming upwards, finding support in this area at 150, 155 nearly within this area. So there will be validity at 155. I'll be very interested if we do this sort of move where we've had this move upwards, failed to swing, print past the low, doing a lower high, and then just reversing. It'd be really awful price action. Like, we have this move failing to swing, come down, and then we do this fail to swing down, come upwards. It's like, it'd be really weird price action. It's valid, but it'd be weird price action. And I'm not saying we're going to be in a continuous downtrend for Solana all the way towards 50, and then I'm not saying we're going to 0. That is not what I'm saying the slightest. But even in this move, it's like, actually, no, we already looked at that previous high. So I think for me with Solana, this is what I have had this drawn since around June time. I've had this retracement towards an area up here above equilibrium, drawn for a while, and then I obviously thought it was going to be this 230 area, 225. Obviously, this being the inverted gap at 225, 229. Obviously, we came a bit higher than that, I will say. We did have a massive bump, and then we've had this massive dump, obviously, across the market. And not only that, and this is the thing, it's like, okay, even though we might have a small retracement of 203 and whatnot, we might come through lows, I do think we could have a stronger move upwards. Obviously, we have this support point. And I have it drawn out already. I'm going to move it along a bit just to see it a bit clearer. In a day and 4 hours on the weekly, we are going to print through this low and have a weekly inverted gap. We have this gap here, which we printed through, and then we printed through it again. This is a bounce price range. This is going to be resistance. If we are printing through this, and on the daily, we've already started to print through lows here. We've had a massive move upwards, a low, a high, and a move down. This is a reversal. This is like clear reversal. We've had a move up, move down, move up, reversal. And we've printed through not only that low, but this low. You can see we moved down, had a massive pump. So this was the start. We had a move upwards. If we do it really, like, exactly, we have this. Obviously, yeah, we did print through that. But we had this low, We've printed through, even if it's just that low. It's like, oh yeah, we have this move upwards, move down, move upwards. We've printed through this low. So we are printing through major lows as well. Not to ignore that. So that is kind of a really important thing to focus on, us having that move. And what we can see from that is we have daily gaps, this being this major gap and stuff. And this area here is that inverted gap on the weekly. So I definitely think we could have a strong reversal on the daily. So if we draw this across, we can see the midpoint is towards that midpoint of the inverted gap on the weekly. We have this gap here sitting above that equilibrium, top end probably being optimum area. We probably have some breaker block here. Obviously, we have down move, up move into this gap. This low I have marked at 230 is going. You can see we have this move down into this gap, and then we print through this candle here. So this is going to be reversed. As you can see, if we draw this across, you can see we used it in here. You can see in this candle Saturday 20th, we used it, came up into this inverted gap on the 4 hour, and then reversed. So we have a breaker block here. So in this midpoint of this gap, roughly, we have a breaker block. We have the weekly gap, inverted gap we're going to want to fill. So we have a lot of resistance in this area at 230. So I do think we could slowly retrace. Again, looking at daily candles, the highs are going to be important, but we don't really have much. Even on the 4 hour, like, we don't really have much on the floor. We have some equal highs here at 215, yes, and some highs here at 221. But other than that, it's 230 really. So I do think we could have a decently strong retracement for Solana. Absolutely. What do I think it's going to mean? Us coming back up to 260? It would be very odd price action. Obviously, I'm not saying it can't happen. Obviously, never say never. But in terms of structurally, I would expect it to do a lower high in this gap and fill it for sure. This is going to be a very important area. Obviously, we'll see how it goes. So that's kind of more of a hard time frame for Solana. Okay, I probably should end the stream. I'm just going to quickly glance at the rest of the coins and then move on. So Syrup, obviously we're coming past this low here, and that's pretty much it really. We're going to see resistance continuously. We're going to continue downwards, and that is pretty much it. We have this high to the low. Oh no, we had this. It's rough. I'm not gonna lie with this price action because we didn't get up. We had this low to this high, and then we had this low. We didn't get up above it. And then if we continue this down, we got nowhere near this. Actually, no, did we? No, we didn't. But if we have this to this, and then do this recent high to low, which I have done on the other stream, we did have that retracing into this gap pretty nicely. So retracing into this gap pretty perfectly. Obviously, we have these areas here. We have order block here, as you can see. If we look at these, we have these two candles printing this gap, tickling into it, and then printing through this massive dump. We can see we draw us across. We have this low. We have this low acting as the start of the order block. You can see a really nice usage here. So not only do we have the top end of this gap being an order block, but also we have the order block, the gap itself. We have this whole area. We filled it really nicely. That's our lower high. We dump. We come past this low. We print. So the aim is going to be for this high to this low for sure. So we have equilibrium. We have this gap here. We also have this move. We have all these lows here. We have this low. We have all these lows. We come past it. We pump. This is a order block. We can see we used it once, but again, we have a massive dump here. The trend is going to be us coming past this low. So even though this is an order block, we're aiming for this low. I don't care about it. It's still going to be a breaker block, though, of importance. Importantly as well, we have an inverted gap. So we have an inverted gap here and this order block here. So obviously to bear that in mind as a potential area. So we could see resistance in this area, maybe wicking up into this area, printing below this low. I could definitely see that happening for sure. But I think my main thing, even though this is a resistance and we have a gap here, we could maybe not come to this inverted gap because obviously, like I said, we have this here. You can see how nicely we used it. We can see how nicely, like that's a perfect low. You can see that low of the breaker block. If you draw that across, you can see we came to it pretty much on the dot. Yeah, we genuinely came to it on the dot. I can't go any more in. Like, genuinely, we actually wicked to the bottom of that breaker block exactly, obviously forming this gap. So this whole gap is going to be within this breaker block. So I definitely think we could see resistance in this area at 3960. This is also within equilibrium. So somewhere filling this gap for maybe towards 40 cents within this breaker block, I could definitely see us retracing to. You can see we've had a move past these highs with printing, and then we've had a retracement. Obviously, I haven't quite done a lower low yet. We haven't started to reverse upwards or anything, but obviously in the process of doing that. We have a daily gap here, obviously probably going to want to fill. We also have this daily order block here, similar to how we have on Bitcoin, where we have this gap here, we filled it in this daily gap, pumped downwards. So drawing this across, as soon as we start, okay, this is obviously the breaker block at 3950, 3934 is the start of this order block, midpoint being at 4070. So, you know, we have valid reason to stop there as well, for sure. If we go to, you know, 1 hour, let's say, this is obviously easier scene. We have this kind of, it's actually a bit of a power free here. You can see we had this range manipulation distribution. This is going to be a very strong breaker block, I believe. So you can see obviously we started this resistance here. You can see we came into it, retraced. We had a gap here, so you can see we came into this order block, retraced, and then obviously reversed it. And then you can see we retraced into it within this high here, as we talked about, and then continued downwards to form it as a breaker block. And we have these highs here, so I definitely think we'll see resistance, you know, nearing that 40-cent mark. I could definitely see nearing that 40-cent mark. Again, this is a this is actually an order block here. You can see, even though we bounced off this breaker block, or this was an order block here, we came upwards and then we dumped down. So this is actually a negative breaker block at 40 as well. So I definitely think we could see that resistance there around the 40 mark for Syrup. Maybe we can print in that area, come as high as this gap here in this optimum area, but I can more than validly see in this breaker block being the resistance we see. But somewhere in this range, I definitely see that resistance, and then us aiming towards the lows again to continue the downtrend we've had this entire time. Obviously for syrup, we've actually come past this low, fully printed past it here. So what could probably be of importance is the high to the low for this downtrend, printing past this low. Actually, no, we've been in a downtrend. We're aiming for lows here. So if we draw this major area here, we could see a bit of retracement for syrup. In this move, as we've obviously we'll see how we print on the weekly, but I could definitely see us come down a tiny bit more for syrup. But as I'm saying that, we could be nearing the exhaust of the move down. We could definitely see a reversal. Obviously, we've come past this low finally. Again, the target for this is the high to the low. Obviously, high to the low, retracing into here, and then coming past that low. So this whole move, the whole reason I had resistance at 52 cent, and the whole reason I've been targeting 38.47 for the entire time, ever since we retraced, ever since we printed, and basically the start of August, I've been wanting to come back to this low since the start of August. As soon as we respected this, obviously we then came back up one more time, but soon, midpoint of August, I've been calling for this low. We missed it by a tiny bit, came up one more time, found resistance, obviously in this order block, the equal lows here, wicked past them. What does this mean now? Well, now that we're printing a new low, we're going to want to see a new lower high in this daily range. So we've done this low, had this move down. We could expect a retracement for syrup. So even though we're still dancing around down here for syrup, I could expect us to do a decently higher low here eventually. What could be a interesting area is obviously we have this move up to down. Well, actually, it's not going to be an interesting area because the equilibrium's here. So we do have an inverted gap here, to be fair, but whatever. We don't really have anything there. We had this gap, we used it, we came upwards, so not really anything there. We had this gap, we came upwards, and then we dumped through both of these candles. So we have an order block here. You can see we came up into this gap. These consecutive down close candles on the daily printed through both of them. You can see the midpoint, we used it really nicely on this wick. So we do have this potentially as a resistance. The midpoint of this order block, we could see resistance there again, come up a bit more, come to this area, see resistance, and then come down again. But obviously, I'm happy. I am bullish on the project. I do think syrup can go up one more time. Again, we've had a massive move upwards. We're slowly retracing. Obviously, not saying we are going to come down to here, but we are only just about getting below this equilibrium here towards some of these areas here. So obviously interested to see how it goes. I'm gonna glance at. I'm not even gonna look at Siri. I'm gonna look at CRO quickly. We've been continuing downwards. I'm going to quickly go to the 1 hour, actually 4 hour here. We had this, we had some of these resistances, obviously these propulsion blocks and whatnot. So we had a breaker block over here. And then we came up and came down in this green candle. We had a propulsion block, came up, came down in this green candle, propulsion block. All the way down, all the way back upwards, and then these candles printed through this candle, propulsion block, came back upwards, down close candles through this green one, propulsion block, and now we're sitting here with this 4 hour fair value gap with this propulsion block here. So we could see resistance again for CRO. I do expect it to come back downwards. Importantly as well, what I want to target, or what I want to talk about is we had the high to the low of this move. We have this equilibrium here. You can see we just about came up into it, filling this gap, which was also a propulsion block. So filling this gap was perfect, came to this area, so filled gap, propulsion block, reversal. So we do want to target these lows already, just off the bat. We want to target these lows. So the fact that we have these propulsion blocks and these gaps, we could have a bit of retracement for CRO back up into this gap and this propulsion block, and then continue back downwards, targeting this low. XRP, we have, what do we have? Power 3, I just want to point out, we had a breaker block on the 15-minute. We have seen resistance at, you can see we had this, we had it as an order block, we used it. In this candle, you can see we came down, wicking past this low here on the 15-minute. You can see we pumped up with this candle. We use it as support really nicely, but then obviously eventually we reversed it, and then you can see as soon as we printed through with this candle, you can see how nicely we wicked back onto it and then came down. Nonetheless, we found our low, we came up, we had a gap here, we had equal highs here, which also we printed at, but most importantly, we had this breaker block here, filling this gap, breaker block, good targets to aim for, lower high, reversal. And obviously finally printing past this low for that new lower low. Coming upwards, we have now actually, obviously, if we go into the 1 hour here, we can see it a bit better. We have printed past these highs, but it doesn't matter because, again, we're targeting these lows. As soon as we print past major highs, maybe it's towards 285, we're not really seeing such a major reversal or anything. So we saw power 3, we saw this move. I could have expected to go a bit higher. Again, from the 1 hour perspective, which is actually not that high, especially if we go to the 4 hour anyway. This was a estimate for where we could see a low if we passed it anyway, which I do expect us to see. Again, we had this mini gap here on the 4 hour. We eventually filled the rest of it. Again, breaker block. This being an order block here, you can see we had this fair value gap. We came back up into it. This candle dumped. So this whole area is an order block. So you can see if we look at 27855, you can see we're seeing good resistance there as well. So I do want to see us print past this low at least to find that lower low. So this is actually out of the equation right now. We haven't done that low, so we're not exactly immediately looking for that retracement yet. We want to see us print past that 26983. These are equal lows here. If we see this gap being filled in this order block and we start to reverse, again, look at all these lows and highs. We could have a manipulation phase a bit more upwards. Again, as we talked about on the 1 hour, we what do we have? We had something somewhere. We have a gap here actually as well, and some equal highs. So we could target some areas at 282. You know, we could target these areas, take some highs here. So we have this kind of phase where we're chopping a bit consolidatory, if you will. We could have a good manipulation into this gap and dump. I do want to target these equal lows down here. You know, these equal lows are going to be a really good target. I want to find a low down here, and then we can target on the 4 hour a really big retracement for XRP, aiming somewhere probably towards this inverted gap, or this whole range in general. We have this order block here filling this gap, dumping. Actually, in general, this whole area is pretty much an order block anyway. So I do want to target up to there at $2.90 for XRP. I'm over the time by a ridiculous amount, so I do apologize. Maybe, what was it, about an hour and 18 minutes? Give or take. So pretty disappointing day today. I've been non-stop talking. I want to actually look at the chat. People saying how are you, Hinge saying thank you to you for being here. It's a nice time to get some sip. Yeah, I think so. Again, we're at some good targets already, and whatever I'm saying, I don't think we're going to come towards 30 cents. I think these are some low areas. I think, like I was saying with the daily, we've printed past this low already, and the entire point of this 3847 target was to print past it, do a lower low, and then retrace. So it doesn't matter exactly if we're doing a lower high or not. It matters if you're trading, you're buying or selling. So anywhere in this area, especially a buy, obviously if you're doing a high leverage long, you might want to be careful about where you enter and where your stop loss is. But if you're just buying, now is a good area. Anywhere in this area we're in right now is a great area to buy syrup if we are to retrace. Obviously not financial advice again. If the market is continuing to dump, I don't want to go against the trend here. If Bitcoin and everyone's dumping, I don't want to say syrup's not going to dump. But in terms of what makes sense for the price action, we should at some point, and again, this is the daily, this can take some days to happen. Even the weekly here, it's like, we have this move, we have the high, the low, we're printing past these lows, we want to see that retracement. We could expect, 44 cent and whatnot up back towards these areas. Let me go to this actually. Yeah, so that weekly gap could get filled at, where was it again? Yeah, there's 43. So yeah, we could see some of these areas, but anyway, here, like you said, now is probably a good time to get syrup. It could be a good area to get syrup. Not financial advice, based on just what I have in front of me. Again, if things continue to dump, syrup might continue to do so always, or also I should say not always. But yes, we'll see how it goes. I'm pretty happy. I will be back streaming on Monday. I think I've enjoyed doing the Monday streams instead of Tuesday, so I probably will do a Monday again. So obviously that's just the day after the next one. So I'll be back on Monday. I'll be back on Wednesday as well. So anyone who is here, who's new, obviously there's some people in Square. I'll talk to you guys. Obviously people in YouTube, you guys already know what I'm about to talk about. We have a quiz on Wednesdays where you can come in, you can answer questions, 1, 2 or 3, and potentially win crypto. So if you are interested in that, obviously make sure you're subscribed on wherever you are following. Maybe join Telegram if you want to, and come back on Wednesday at 7 p.m. UTC plus 2, because that's when we're doing the quiz. And apart from that, I'll be back on Thursday after that, and then Saturday again. So we'll see how it goes. I'll come back on Monday. By Monday, market may pump. Yeah, a lot of time with markets, if you're going week by week basis, Monday can pump, and then the rest of the week can be spent moving in the opposite direction. So yeah, Monday could pump. Obviously, we'll see how it goes. I'll watch it on Sunday as well, see what we're building up for Monday. But yeah, I will definitely be back Monday for the next stream. I will try to keep it a lot shorter. I say it every time. I'll try to keep it shorter, but I never do. I've spent, an hour and 20 minutes on the stream, and some of you guys probably spent an hour and 20 minutes watching the stream. So, it's a long time. So I'll try my best to keep it short. I did look at the 15-minute and some lower time frames today, just to give it a bit more. Just because again, the TA we've had between last stream and today is nothing. We've just been consolidating. So. If we are consolidating and not really moving, I could expect some manipulation phase and a pump to somewhere. We could manipulate down one more time, pump up towards some lower highs on the higher time frames, then dump again. That is potential. So yeah, actually, Kishan, you could be right. Yeah. If we're consolidating on the daily higher time frame on like Bitcoin, let's say, which we have been doing, if we manipulate downwards and take lows, that's a manipulation phase. If we are basing on consolidation, manipulation, distribution, we could have a big pump in Monday to follow the process to go upwards. And again, I do want that pump anyway, regardless, because if we go to the daily and ignore all this, we've had this massive dump, retrace into the gap, dump. We formed this gap in these two candles. If we're kind of consolidating on like the 4 hour, we're really consolidating here. We did have a wick. We're consolidating here. If we have a little like wick past to 108.7 and then pump upwards, we could definitely easily target some of these areas, which I've talked about on stream. Obviously, with 11050. Obviously, we talked about order blocks and whatnot. So yeah, Monday could definitely pump for sure. I'm ending the stream. Okay, I need to end the stream. I've kept you guys for so long. I do apologize. So I'll be back obviously Monday. Hopefully, you guys will be back Monday as well. I'll see you in Telegram. See you on the stream. And that's it. Thank you so much. Goodbye.